Let me go to my work. Can you guys see my screen? Is my screen visible?
Yeah, it's visible.
Yeah, it's visible.
Okay. Just give me a moment. It will load. So authentication policy contract, right? Authentication policy contract is like a medium. Okay. Think of it as a medium which we use in order to send attributes across the application. Now you can say you can have a question like we also have adapter, right? But why do we need to use a authentication policy contract? What is the extra feature or what is the extra support that we are getting from a APC, authentication policy contract? Okay, this can be a valid question, but or adapter is doing the same thing. Why should I need to use authentication policy contract? So now suppose you have a use case. Suppose you have 100 applications. Okay, you have 100. One. Suppose you have 100 applications. So suppose you have 100 applications, okay, and all the 100 applications you can like you can do the authentication in two ways, right? You can either map a adapter directly,
Hmm.
or you can map a authentication policy contract.
Contract.
Correct?
Yes.
With me till here?
Hmm.
Okay. Now suppose you are, so there are two ways. Okay. Since there are two ways, so suppose now you get a requirement where you want to have step up authentication for your all the 100 applications. Okay, for all the 100 applications we want step up authentication. Now what is step up authentication? Any idea?
Oh, the extra level of authentication layer,
Multi-factor
maybe
authentication.
MFA. Yeah.
Yes. MFA or multi-factor authentication is also called your step up authentication. So let me open my notepad. Notepad. So now you have two ways, right? The first is 100 applications, okay,
Hmm.
and you have adapters. This is done through adapter in 100 applications. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Second way is, if I come down, second way is 100 apps through APC. APC is authentication policy contract. Now, if you want to do MFA, what like if you want to implement MFA using the first method, what are the steps that you need to do?
So first we will do the first factor authentication using anything like HTML form adapter or any like identifier first adapter, and then we'll use a second adapter which is ping ID adapter or other adapter which provides the MFA functionality. So these
Okay.
are the two adapter which needs to be added in the first case.
Okay. Okay. Correct. So what you have to do is in the first case, you will first create you will first create a MFA adapter, because without the MFA adapter, you
Hmm.
will not be able to do MFA. Now, what is going to be the second step? Second step, what is going to be the second step? Tell me.
Second step as in matlab, which one you are saying? That APC.
No, 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 no. I'm saying you created the adapter. Okay, you created the MFA adapter. What is going to be the next step in the first use case?
Okay, then for each and every application, we need to attach that adapter. Then only that will happen.
Okay.
So it's a hideous task.
So 100, uh, I'll just give 100 star app. So means for 100 app, you have to do this 100 times.
Hmm.
Correct?
Hmm.
Plus, you are creating the adapter. Okay. So this is 100 plus 1.
Yes.
Okay.
Hmm.
Now, now, when you make any changes, if you plan on making any changes, okay, then what? You have to make changes everywhere else. So again 100 changes, right?
Yes.
But that is a different scenario. But till here, okay. Now if you are configuring the MFA adapter once, and then in 100 different places you have to add that adapter, right? So total 101 steps, correct?
Hmm.
With me till here, everyone? Reshma,
Yes.
Mohan, Jay, Rama.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Yes. So now what happens is, with authentication policy contract, if I put this up, authentication policy contract is nothing but a medium. So what, when I say medium, what it does is, let me so if you remember, we have two ways, right? You create an authentication policy contract and you use this APC inside your application, right? Now, what the APC will do is, if you remember, the main part where authentication, the main part which drives authentication is the authentication policy, correct?
Yeah.
So let this load up first. Then it will be easy to understand what I'm trying to. So now, if I go to authentication and I go to policy. So if you remember, last time we created a policy, right? Now that policy we were using that policy contract. No, okay. So now what were we doing? We added the policy contract inside our application first. So if I go to uh, let it get down. Let
Hey,
it
hi
go.
everyone. I'm sorry I was on the way.
No,
Yeah,
we just started.
thank you so much.
Just giving a recap on the policy contract. So if you remember, guys, on the in this connection for IAM showcase, I use the policy contract. Now, what is the job of this policy contract? The job of the policy contract is just to fetch me these attributes, mail and username. Now, where are these attributes coming from? If you remember, I am using the same policy contract in a policy. In a,
One minute. Can you please reload that page once again? Sorry, Kapil. 1 minute. That you are saying that extending contract from where? That is the SP collection.
now, if you see, where am I taking the authentication? Like, what is my authentication source? My authentication source is policy contract. I'm
Acha,
not using
yeah.
adapter.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what is the job of this policy contract for me? The job of this policy contract is to
Extend contract.
just fetch me the values that I need, like the mail and username, nothing else.
So it
Okay,
is fetching the value from the adapter or from the data store? I guess
wait,
from.
we'll come to that.
Yeah.
Hold your horse. So now, if I come back to my policy, this is the only policy that I'm using. Now, if I open this policy, what this policy is doing is, this policy is first checking where the request is coming from. Then, for authentication, for authentication, I am sending the request to my form adapter. Correct?
Yeah.
Because why do we use adapter? We use adapter for authentication request to manage our authentication. Now, once this user is authenticated, what I'm doing? I'm using a policy contract. Now, it is the same policy contract that I've used in my application. Now, the job of this policy contract is to fetch me these values. Now, where is this value coming from? If you see the mapping, Where is this value coming from? HTML form adapter. So once the user is authenticated, I take the values from the adapter and map it to the required attributes that I need. Now this in-turn adapter. So this here I'm taking it from the adapter, but this adapter at the backend is connected to a PCV, and that PCV is connected to a data store.
Data store.
Are you getting the chain? Like how the chain?
Yeah, I'm getting. एक बार drop. Just click on the drop down once. I want to see what are other context switches. अच्छा अच्छा हाँ, it will gonna do. Yeah.
Here also you can directly take it from the LDAP data store, but if you're not taking it directly from the LDAP data, so this form adapter is making a call to PCV, PCV making call to data store, right?
How we will take from LDAP data store? I did not see any option over there.
Array, you see, right? Here also you can add that attribute source, add attribute source.
Oh, okay.
Here you add the data store. Is this clear, guys? Any questions on this? Okay. So now coming back. Now my second use case where I have 100 apps. Okay. Second use case is 100 apps, 100 apps using authentication policy contract. Now, here if I want to do MFA, now what is going to be the step? The first step is common. I have to create a MFA adapter. Without this, the work will not happen. After this, what do I need to do? Do I need to make any changes on the application?
No, not on the application. In the APC, you need to include that.
Policy. In the policy, you have to check.
Yes. So I don't have to make changes 100 in 100 places. I just need to add this adapter in the policy. So instead of making changes in 100 applications, I just have to create my policy in such a way that it will include MFA. Does this make sense? So what I can do is, once the user is authenticated from here, I can add the do adapter. I can send the user for MFA over here. And then if the MFA is successful, I just need to do the contract mapping using policy contract. Is this clear? Or do you want me to repeat it again? Subhajit, Noman, Reshma, Jay.
Shubhanga, can you just show like how to attach that Duo adapter over here?
So see, now understand the flow. First, what I do is I intercept the request where it is coming. Okay. Now, if the request is coming from my particular application, what I can do is I ask the user to use their username password in the HTML form. So there will be a login screen like this, and the user will have to give their username and password. Now, if the authentication over there is successful, so if the user gives wrong username and password, then what is happening? It is done. They will not be allowed to move forward. Now, if the authentication is successful, like if the users give the right username credential, what I can do is I can set them to do MFA. I can send them to the MFA adapter. Now here, if the authentication is failed, like if they're not able to approve the push, what will happen? Done. They will not be allowed to move forward. If the authentication is successful, what I can do is I can map their value. I can use this policy contract and I can map the value. Is this clear?
Yes.
Like one thing, after DOMFA, the user should be successfully landed to that application, right?
Yes.
So why we are putting the test PC policy contract?
You need to get the values, right? You need attribute values for the user. Where will you get the attributes? So what is PC? I think you missed the first part. So policy contract is nothing but a medium. It's like a middleman that is sitting. So this middleman, its only job is, once the user is authenticated, I need the attributes for the user. So this policy contract will just fetch me the attributes from here and send it to my application. So where is
Okay.
so here also I'm using it. So here it will just send the mail and username to this application. Is this clear?
Oh, okay.
Does this answer your question, Reshma?
Yes, Shubhanga.
Shubhajit, is this clear now?
Yeah, it's clear. I have one more thing. So for example, in SP connection also, while we're creating any SAML application, say for example, we have the choice of picking up the attribute directly from data store, right?
Yes.
So in that case, like the policy that you have shown just now, so there is I mean this fragment or APC or else the adapter. These are mainly for the authentication purpose. I mean we can directly get the attribute what we need in the SAML token directly when creating the SP connection. Correct. I mean, say for example, okay, let us say for example, there is a SAML application that needs my title, manager and member of attribute. Okay.
Mhm.
Now, suppose in the adapter, I have not configured this thing that this attribute it will extract from data store. However, in SP connection, while creating the SAML application, over there I have given that it will pick up the attribute, this
Mhm.
attribute directly from data store instead of adapter.
Mhm.
And then I have created all this authentication policy. I have created a policy. I have set it a priority one. And this policy is that like any SAML, the selector is there, any SAML application is there, it will go to that HTML form adapter. If it is getting success, then it will go to land it to MFA adapter. So in
Mhm.
this case, the attribute it can directly collect from that the attribute settings which are configured in the SP connection, right? There is
Mhm.
no need to configure the attribute in the adapter or else that APC. My understanding is correct?
See, now my question to you is, what is going to be your authentication source? Are you taking over here? Then will you be using a policy contract or an adapter?
No, I'll be using the policy contract.
Then if you're taking it from here, right? You are taking it from here. You are getting the values from your data store. Now, what will happen is when the user is authenticated. Once the user is authenticated, I need to send the values, right, based on how your mapping is done.
Yeah,
So
the
here,
value, I mean, in the SP connection also we are collecting the value, right? Like in when you create the XP connection
Hmm.
over there also we are selecting what are all the attributes we are
Hmm.
taking from the uh, data store or from
Hmm.
adapter.
Right. So now I'll explain. See, when you do the mapping, okay, suppose you are saying my manager attribute and this attribute. Now here, if you try to get it from adapter and if you are not getting those values from adapter, then you need to add the data source, right? Data source, right? If
Hmm.
you don't do the mapping over here, how will the values be populated? So see, from here, from the policies, your value go to your application. This policy contract, what did I say? It's a middleman. After the user is authenticated, it sends the value to the application. Okay. So if you map inside the application, but you're not doing the mapping over here, or you're not fetching those values that is needed,
Hmm.
then you'll not get those values inside the token.
Okay, then for that case, like for say each and every application needs some different sets of SAML token. I mean, inside the there will inside the SAML token there will be different attributes. So in that case, we need to configure different sets of APC. Say for example, in SAML one application, I need title and manager, and in the SAML two, I need department and street address. So in that case, I'll configure two SP connection, and I need to configure two APC, right? With this different attributes, or if say for example, no, I need to configure two APC, and as well as in the adapter, in one adapter only, I'll fetch all four attributes, and then in the authentication policy contract mapping, I'll only pull those two attributes for those two application, and then map it to the authentication policy.
See, now with the policy contract, what you have to do is the policy contracts are like standards. Okay. The attributes that you pass inside your policy contract, right? You generally do not change policy contract. You can make changes in your adapter or even in your adapter. You generally will never make like add a new attribute or change attribute, remove attribute. You can remove attributes, but again, generally we do not add anything new in an existing policy contract that has been used across different applications. Okay, that is not the right way of approaching things. Now,
So what is the right way then?
so see, if you need, so if see depending on your scenario. Like suppose for SAML applications, this is the minimum set of requirements that I need. So I have a policy contract created. Similarly, you can create something for your OAuth application, depending on use cases. Okay. So if there are some particular use cases that are very common in your organization, you can define a set of attributes like, see, these are the set of attributes that we are going to pass. Okay. Like on our customer facing applications, we only have 5 to 6 attributes that we pass. We never change our policy contract. Okay. So you have to define a set of criteria. What is there? Like what all attributes do you need that have to be passed? And then you will go from there. Does this make sense?
Yeah, a little bit actually. Still confused.
Okay. Where are you getting this?
I mean, Subankar, I think we need to create policy contract based on our requirements.
Yes, that is what I say, right? Again, you can now, uh, as you said, as I was also explaining, depending on your use cases, right? What kind of policy, what kind of attributes do you need to be passed? Depending on that, you create your policy contract. Now, where you are fetching those attributes, it totally depends on how you are doing the mapping. So right now, if I go back to my connection, if I go back to my SP connection, you see, from here, like if I do the mapping, right, here I can fetch the attributes from my LDAP, right? I can just add attribute source and I can fetch it from there. Or I can directly fetch it from the policy contract. Now, where is this policy contract fetching the attributes from? Okay, since I'm taking it from here, right? This authentication policy contract should also get the values from somewhere. There should be a source. Now, this source can be anything. So now, if you come over here in the policy, now here in the contract mapping, if I add a data store, my policy contract is going to get the value from data store. But now, since I'm not adding the data store, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get the values directly from adapter. So whatever values the adapter is getting, I'm going to send the same through my policy contract to the application.
Hmm. Yeah,
Well,
I understood. Yeah.
Like, did everyone understand what I was trying to explain? Jay, Mohan, Noman, Reshma, Rama, any
Yes,
questions?
yes, yes. Recently,
Yes.
we done some changes in our environment using policy.
Any questions from anyone? Noman, Mohan, Jay, Reshma?
Um,
No, no.
No, Shubhankar.
Is policy contracts clear?
Yeah, it's clear.
Okay. So today we are going to start with something called OAuth. Like what is so I'll ask like what is your understanding of OAuth? What do you understand by OAuth? I'll start from Shubhaji. What is your understanding of OAuth?
What is basically a authorization layer.
Don't look at my PDF. Please. I need to stop sharing. I need to stop sharing. Yeah, now go on.
What is basically an authorization layer? Actually, you authorize a particular service on some certain scope. Um, so that particular service will not have entire access to whatever uh, the thing you have built or the identity you have. It will only have access to the particular scope that you have approved it or you have given a consent to that. So this is a authorization, and this can be used on the top of OIDC. So authorization over authentication, we can say that. So basically, if I can give an example, say for example, I have a Gmail account and I want a particular service which will read through all my Gmail, all the mails inside my Gmail account, and then unsubscribe those mails which are coming from a spammer. So in this case, I have to provide that service only access to my Gmail. I mean the read access to my Gmail account, not I mean full access to my Gmail account. This is what authorization is about actually.
Okay, so you like correct explanation. Everything was correct. Then coming back to Reshma. Reshma, what is your understanding of what?
It's an authorization protocol and can be used to allow access the applications without sharing the username and password.
Did you just Google that?
No.
No man. No man. Did you go on mute?
Yeah. Hey. So yeah, it's an protocol that I know,
Okay.
honestly, and
What?
yeah, I don't have much, idea on
Okay.
author adaptation. Yeah.
Okay. So, Jay, what is your idea of what?
Yeah, Shubhankar, it's an like authorization protocol. It's mainly for the granting the authorization without the using the password credentials. We can like authorize the to the particular website application.
Okay. Mohan. Rama, I hope you are also aware of what how it works.
Yes. Mainly we use it for web-based applications OAuth protocol. Like we need to create client ID, OpenID connect for that OAuth protocol. It's a standard access delegation actually. Open authorization using OpenID connect. We need OAuth.
Okay. So now, since everyone was talking about authorization, this authorization, that, so what is authorization? What do you understand by authorization? Numan, what is authorization?
Like the process for providing, some sort of like in between the process of getting authenticated.
No, no. Shubhajit, what is authorization?
Hello.
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes.
Go on.
Authorization is basically to authorize a particular service to rather to give consent so that a particular people can access that. I mean, you are not authenticating that. Authenticating is done by the IDP. Once the IDP has authenticated, uh, I mean, you will get the access token. Using that access token, you are authorized to access that resource. Um, so I don't know how to explain it in a clear way.
Okay, I'll come to it. First, in order to understand OAuth, okay, you need to understand few. First, what is authorization? Okay, in a very simple way, right? Authorization is generally what what are the things that an authenticated user can do. Like what are his like what all things he can do. Like can he just read an application? Like when you are authorized, right? You are authorized to just view this application. Now, since I am the owner of this application, I can edit this also. So my authorization includes or my rights. In simple terms, what are my rights when I'm trying to access any resource? What are going to be my rights for a resource? So for some application, you just have view only access. For some applications, you can edit. Like if I share a Word document to you, I'll just give you view only access. You cannot edit my document. So your authorization or your rights are just limited to read only capability. But my rights can be like read and write or even change things. Does this make sense? Does this help with the idea of
Yes.
authorization? Now, authorization, what the main purpose is, right? The main purpose is to ensure that users can only access the information and perform the action that they are permitted. They do not cross their boundaries of action. So suppose I cannot give a finance guy right access to my code base, right? What is it like? He has no use in accessing my code base or understanding my code, right? So he does not need that access. Similarly, uh, a software developer should not be having access to the payroll information of a company. And even if for some reason he's having the access to read the payroll information, he should not have the right to change that data. Correct? Because he is not working in that area. So his rights have to be limited. Does this make sense?
Yes.
Now coming to OAuth, like most of you were saying, OAuth is an authorization protocol or framework, this and that. Actually, OAuth is used for authorization, and as it said, it is a standardized protocol designed for secure authorization. But OAuth is not a purely authorization protocol. Okay, OAuth is a delegation protocol. Okay, it's not a pure authorization protocol. When I say delegation, and why am I saying delegation? Any idea? Or what do you mean by the word delegation? Delegate.
Assigned to another person.
Correct. Now, when I say OAuth is primarily a delegation protocol rather than a pure authorization protocol, what I mean is here the users, okay, the users generally give like permission or delegate access to their resources or to their, I don't know the a word for resources, but OAuth generally allows user to delegate access to the resources to a third party application. Now, when they allow third party applications to access their resources, how do they do that? They do not share their credentials, right? This is where OAuth is very handy. OAuth allows access to protected resources on behalf of users, but it does not share the user credentials. This makes OAuth a lot secure. Now, how is this delegation happening? This delegation happens in the form of tokens. Okay, this delegation is happening in the form of tokens. Okay, so now when I say token, any idea on what token is?
Session ID.
No, no, not really.
It's like a permission to
Yes,
access that resource.
not just permissions. It encompasses a lot of. Okay, now I'll explain what token is and how it is used. Uh, but is this part clear? Like why OAuth is a delegation protocol and not an authorization protocol? Does this make sense? Any question, guys? Okay, if not, I'll say. Now, I'm saying that OAuth is a delegation protocol, but does this mean OAuth is only used to delegate the functionality of authorization, or does it also do something uh, to implement the authorization aspect? Is this clear? Like what my question is? Is OAuth only a delegation protocol, or does it also have the ability to do some sort of authorization? Is this question making sense? Yes, no, maybe. Okay.
Yes, I think it also do the authorization.
Now, when I say authorization, right, or in OAuth, we do authorization using something called scopes. Okay. When I say scopes, scope is nothing but the level of access a user has. Okay, that is the scope. Okay. In OAuth, we generally use scopes to define what kind or what level of access a user is going to have. Okay, or what is going to be the permission that a user is going to have. Okay, that is what scopes are. Okay, is this clear, guys? Like, is this making sense? Any questions, or is it confusing? Now here in this document, right, there is an example. So there was a there was an online directory called Yelp. Now in order to access Yelp, right, you give your username password. Now if you want to receive details from Yelp, like if you want Yelp to send you email, what they used to do was they used to ask the user to give their username and password. Now with this username and password, they used to store it in their directory. Now once the user gives its username and password, what happened was they used to send them marketing emails and everything. But this is not the right way to store credentials. Okay, because if anything goes wrong on the Yelp site, what will happen is all the user credentials will be at risk, or hackers will have access to all the user credentials for user, and then they can do whatever they want. So in order to resolve this situation, right, in order to come over this situation, we came across with something called OAuth, a delegation protocol, where instead of using the user credentials, okay, we don't share the user credentials. Okay, we share tokens. Okay, now with the help of tokens, the user allows access to the protected resource in a very limited manner. Does this make sense?
Yes.
So now I have one question for everyone. Okay, now since we talked about, like, this is a very good interview question, okay, that I was also asked sometimes. uh, the question is, what do you understand, like what is the difference between session based authentication and token based authentication? Okay, this is uh, so this question, okay, this is a very good question, and this was asked, like this is asked to me in my Deloitte interview, I think. Yeah. Now we'll cover this question at the end of this class, but note it down somewhere. Remind me if I forget, like what is going to be the answer. Is this clear, guys?
What is difference between token and session?
Token based authentication and
Session based also. Okay.
give me one moment. Is the question clear? Question clear to everyone?
Yes, it's clear.
Okay. So now if I ask you, like, what is the difference between OAuth and SAML, what will you say?
SAML is an authentication protocol.
Only authentication? Only.
SAML is both serving authentication and authorization, whereas OAuth is only for authorization. Not sure whether my answer is right or not.
Okay, somewhat it's right, but yeah, it has more difference. Now, when I talk about OAuth, right, OAuth, the main difference, as you said, like OAuth is only used for authorization, whereas SAML is used for both authentication and authorization. And one more thing is in OAuth, okay. So in SAML, we have two flows. One is your IDP initiated SSO, and the second is SP initiated SSO, right? But in OAuth, we have something called grant types. Okay. Grant type, when I say grant type, it generally means how the user interaction is happening or how the flow is happening. So in OAuth, we have four types of flows or grant types. Okay. First is authorization code flow. And we have a variant of authorization code flow. Actually, there are two or three variants of authorization code flow. The first is a Pixie flow, proof key for code exchange. It is also a type of auth code flow, but it is more secure. Second, uh, I'll not say a direct variation of auth code flow, but it is called device authorization grant flow. It also comes out from the auth code itself. Okay. Then we have the implicit grant flow. This flow, this implicit grant flow is not used anymore. This is a legacy way of doing things. Okay. This is not at all secure, and I would suggest never use it because it is not used anywhere else. Right? Then we have the password grant and the ROPC or the resource owner client credential grant. Okay, and then we have the refresh token grant. But the top four, like these four are the grant types that you're going to use on a daily basis. Forget about implicit, but these four are something that you're going to use on daily basis. Okay, is this clear till here? What OAuth is and what are the flows? Is this clear?
Yeah. Shubhanga, sorry to ask one question related to SAML. Like, while if it is used in the authorization part, right, in SAML, where the level of access will be controlled. Like for some users, we can assign the website for read-only access. For some other users, we can read and write access. How that level of access is controlled in SAML?
So see,
Where
when you pass attributes, right? If you remember, I talked about issuance criteria.
Okay.
So when you're passing the attributes, right? Using the attributes, you can control anything inside SAML. So if I go back to my application. So if I go to my application, issuance criteria. So here I can use issuance criteria. Okay. Now with the issuance criteria, I can control what kind of access a user will have. Suppose if I want to mapped attribute. Okay. Now based on the mapped attribute value, if the username is not Shubhankar, like anyone apart from Shubhankar is trying to access any application. Okay. What I can do is I can give a criteria, do not give access. I can write a organal expression that will deny them access. Okay. And I can give the error result as the output. Does this make sense?
Okay, understood.
Okay. This is what we can do. Similarly, in the attributes, when you're passing the attributes, right? If I go to my browser, now here, okay. Here also, if you suppose you want to use group membership as a way in which you want to control the level of access a user has. Now, if you want to do that, right, what you can do is you can use an expression. Now, as I said, in Pingfederate allows you to use custom expression. Okay, custom expression, something called organal. Okay, now with organal, you can write some expression and you can control who has what level of access based on their group membership. So if you are part of ABC group, then you can have read access, but you have to write that expression. Okay, does this make sense?
Where to add that expression in the policy contract?
anywhere, wherever you're doing the mapping. So if I do expression, right
expression. Okay.
here, I can write something called this dot get. So there is a way of writing ordinal expression. Okay. Now that is something we cannot cover in this course. Okay. But if anyone wants to learn more about ordinal, let me know. I'll share. I have a documentation created which has some ordinal expressions that you can go through. Okay. And I'll share that.
Okay.
But this is generally what we try to do. This is how we control the access.
Yeah.
Okay. Coming back, where did that? Now in OAuth, right? You in SAML you had SP and IDP. Okay. But in OAuth you have 4 different actors that are involved. Okay. There are 4 actors that are being involved. The first is called resource owner or the user. Okay. Now suppose you try to access Ghana. Okay. You try to access Ghana. So now you are the user, right? You as a user, or suppose I'll give an example. I'll go back. This is let it go. This is Ghana. Now, if I want to access Ghana, right? I am the user who is trying to access this application. Correct? Yes, no. Guys, are you with me? Like I am the user and I'm trying to access Ghana, right?
Yes.
Yes.
So I am the resource owner. Okay, I'll go back over here. I am the resource owner. Now the client application. Now the application, okay, the application which I am trying to access, okay. Now if I go over here and if I click on login, if I click on login, what is it asking me to do? It is asking me to use continue with Google or continue with my phone or email ID. So now if I do continue with Google now, let me do this in an incognito way. Then it will be better. Now if I do login, and again this tool that I'm using right now, this developer tool, it's a very it will be a very important part of your life when you start working on things, when you start working on applications. This is going to be very important. Where is the login option? Do you see the login option? Um, where is it?
Right upside. Yeah.
So you see, now if I try to log in, okay, it gives me 2 options. One is continue with Google and continue with phone ID. Now this client, okay, this client wants to access my email ID or it wants to access my details so that I can access something on their end, right? Something that is present inside Ghana's server. So it needs my details, right? It needs some details from my end. So it gives me option. How do I want to log in? Do I want to log in using Google or do I want to log in using phone or email ID? Now, in this case, okay, now here are 2 other actors that are getting involved. The first is called authorization server. Now, what is the authorization server? Authorization server is the server that issues access token or the server where the user is sent for authentication. Okay. Now, this might be a bit confusing, but try to understand it again. We have 4 actors: resource owner, client application, authorization server, and resource owner. Resource owner is the user who is trying to access something. Okay, he is trying to suppose access your Spotify or Ghana. He is the user. Now, Spotify or Ghana or any other application becomes your client application. Okay, the client application that the user is trying to access. Now, resource server is the place where your client application is hosted or the resources of the client application is hosted. Are you with me till here? Any questions? Guys, is this
No.
confused?
So basically, you said one thing earlier that instead of sharing the password and credential to the applications directly, right? We share the token.
Hmm,
So here, Ghana is one application.
hmm.
So I'll put my credentials over there, Google or anything. It will go to Google, and Google will share one token with Ghana
Hmm.
to provide me the access. Am I
Yes,
correct?
yes.
Okay.
Now, it is not that simple actually. There are,
Mhm.
so see, when we talk about grant types, right, and we are talking about authorization code grant type. Now, this authorization code grant type has two aspects. Okay, one one is the front end aspect that you see right now. This is the front end part where I as a user I go, I click on continue with Google. Okay, just look at the URL how it is changing. You see, this is the URL. So now, if I copy this URL and I go to a notepad, you see client ID, where is the client?
Second line.
Second line ID
Yes.
question
Okay, this one.
percentage.
Uh, so we have something called client ID over here. Okay. Now, what happens is I click sign in with Google. So what Ghana did was it sent a request. It sent me to Google for signing in. So again, when I said OAuth is a delegation protocol, so what is happening? What is happening is it instead of Ghana authenticating me, what it did was see I personally do not know the user. So what I will do is I will send the user to someone who already has some details about the user. So in our case, it was Google, which already has some details about the user, like their email address or their uh, uh, just email address for now. Okay. So Google knows my user. So what I'll do is I as a user, I was sent to Google. So Google will ask me to first authenticate me. If I am not authenticated already, Google will ask me like, hey Shubhankar, since you are not authenticated right now, can you please authenticate yourself? So what I'll do is I'll authenticate myself. I'll click on next. It will ask me for my username and password. I'll give my username password. Now you see what happened. After you see now I'm logged into Ghana, right? Now I'm logged into Ghana. I gave my username and password. Google authenticated me, and after authentication, it sent me back to Ghana. Okay. Now I can access Ghana and I can access the resources. You'll see my profile is also created. If I go over here, you see it created my username. It has my username. It has my email ID and it has my gender. Okay. Now when I said it shares tokens, right? It does not share your credentials. So now what I'll do is I'll go at the top and I'll search for token. Um, Okay, it stopped the log. Okay, let me do this again. But is this clear, like how authorization code is working? So in authorization code, I'll explain again. Where is my? So in authorization code, what is happening is it starts with the user. The user tries to access the application, the client application. Now, since the client application does not know the user, so what will happen is the client application is going to send the user to the authorization server. Now, the authorization server has two parts. Remember this. Authorization server has two parts. One is called the authorization server. The second part is called authorization endpoint, and the second is called the token endpoint. So let me draw this out. Then it will be clear. But are you guys with me till here? Like, it's a bit confusing, but let me. So suppose this is my user. Okay. Now this user tries to access Ghana. Okay. This is Ghana, right? Now what Ghana will do is Ghana does not know the user, right? Ghana does not know the user. So what Ghana will do is now this is my actor or the user. This is my what is this user called? What is the name of this user? In what? Like what is the role?
It's the resource owner.
Resource owner or user. Now what is Ghana? Ghana is my client application. Now user tries to access this. To Ghana. Now, since Ghana does not know the user, right? So what Ghana will do is Ghana will send the user. It will send the user to the authorization server. Now this authorization server, I'll give it auth set server. Now the client application, the the user is here. Okay. The user is sent here. So let me see if I can draw this arrow properly or not. So the user is sent to the authorization server. Now, authorization server has two parts. Okay, one is called uh, one is called the slash auth z endpoint, and the other is called slash token endpoint. Now, what happens is once the user is sent over here, right? The user is authenticated. This authorization endpoint generates a temporary code. Okay, this temporary code is called authorization code. Okay, and temp of code. Okay, this after the user is sent here, the user like gives their like logs in with Google. Then what happens is a temporary auth code is generated. Now this entire part that you see, this entire part is the front end part that you see right now. Okay, So whatever you were seeing in the screen, like with Ghana, when I was trying to log in, that is the front end part. Okay, this is the front end part. Now, what happens is, once this temporary code is generated, this code is then exchanged. Now this, what Ghana will do is, let me come back. Ghana, where is the arrow? Ghana will come, take this code, and it will go to the authorization endpoint. My arrow is not working. But sorry guys, like my diagram is not happening properly, but try to understand. Ghana, this temporary auth code is generated. Now Ghana is going to take this code, and what it will do is it will go to the token endpoint. Okay, it will go to the token endpoint with the temporary auth code. With temporary goes to the token endpoint. Okay, it goes to the token endpoint. Now here what happens is, this code is exchanged for this token. Okay, a code to token exchange happens. Now whenever the code to token exchange happens, what will happen is Ghana will get the token instead of the credential for the user. And once Ghana has the credential, once Ghana has the tokens, okay, once Ghana has the tokens, what it will do is it will allow the user to access its resources. So something like this will happen. I can access the application. I can do a 1 month trial over here. Okay, is this clear, guys? Any questions? Do you want me to repeat the entire thing again? Yes, no?
Like the flow of this diagram,
Hmm.
basically a user or resource owner will go to any of the application like Ghana,
Hmm.
and Ghana will go to the server,
Hmm.
and and it
I'll,
will just okay.
I'll explain again. See,
Mhm.
think of an example where you access a photo application. Now, what this photo application does is it takes photo from your Google Drive and it creates a collage. Okay. Now, you tell me, uh, imagine a scenario. Okay. I come to your house and I directly ask for money. You don't know me. Will you give me your money?
No,
You
no,
need to know me, right?
yeah,
There should be some way in which you can know me, you can trust me, then only you can lend me money.
correct.
Correct? So think like when you download any photo application that tries to access your Google Drive. So now think this photo application, when it directly goes to the Google Drive, will Google Drive know this person or Google Drive will know the user? Like
User,
the Google Drive will know the user since
yes.
the user is using his Gmail account to access Google Drive, right?
Hmm.
So whenever the photo application tries to directly access the Google Drive, it will not let it do it.
Correct.
Okay. So what will happen is Google Drive will first ask the user, like, hey user, this photo application is trying to access me uh, without your permission. So do you know this application? So what will the user will say, yes, I know this application. So what will happen then is this Google Drive is going to ask, like, I can allow the application access to your photos, but first you prove me your identity.
Hmm.
You have to prove me your identity. So what the user will do is user will go to this authorization server. Now authorization server will authenticate the user. The user is authenticated. Once the user gets authenticated, the authorization server will generate something called a temporary code. Okay, it's a very short-lived code, and this code is called authorization code. Now, once this code is generated, what Ghana will do is Ghana will take this code and go to the token endpoint. Okay, it will go to the token endpoint, and with this code, it will give away the code and take a token. Now, once it has the token, once this photo app has the token, it will take the token, and from here it will access your Google Drive. Now, since the user has given the permission, user has proved its identity, and and Ghana also has the token. So what will happen is, with the token, it will be able to access your photos. Is this clear, everyone?
Yes. Yes.
Shubhajit, is this clear?
Yeah, yeah.
Reshma,
Yes.
Rama, Jay?
Yeah, it's clear.
Yes, yes, so
So now, see, I know this can be a bit confusing if you're reading, if you're doing it for the first time. Okay, but in SAML, right? In order to, so let me ask you a question. In SAML, if I want to know who is the application that is making the request, what is the parameter that we use to understand where the request is coming from?
Entity ID or the
Entity.
identifier.
Yes, the entity ID. Similarly, in OAuth, in order to know where the request is coming from, we use something called client ID. Now, this client ID is the equivalent to your entity ID. Okay, but in OAuth, we do not use the entity ID. We use something called client ID. This client ID represents where the request is coming from. Who is the application making the request? Okay, is this clear, guys?
yes, yes.
Now, similarly, tell me in SAML, what is the parameter that we use in order to know where the user has to be sent after authentication?
ICS URL.
Correct. ACS URL. So now in OAuth, in order to know where to send the user after authentication, we use a parameter called redirect URI, or the location where the user is sent after successful authentication. I don't know if it is here or not. Redirect URI, Ghana.com, channel ID.
Yeah, that is the one, right? https ghana.com is a redirect URL. It is sending the authorization code
Where do you see?
on the fourth line actually.
No, there should be a
Fifth
parameter
line.
called redirect URI, but it is not.
Acha.
Okay.
It's not.
That is not the
Maybe
exact.
in Postman it will be visible.
In Postman, it will be visible. But again, so with the help of redirect URI, we decide where the user will be sent after authentication. Okay. Now coming back. Yeah. So now if you want to control the access, the kind of access, okay. So if you see, whenever you try to access any new application, or whenever you try to access Zoom, it says, I need access to your email, I need access to your contact. So what is that? When you see that screen, pop-up screen, allow access to photos, allow access to emails, what is that? That is called the scope. What is going to be the level of access that the client application will have? Does this make sense? Any question, guys? I'll move ahead. So I'll share this document with everyone. This is going to help you in understanding what it is. Now, if I go back, is authorization code clear? Any questions from anyone?
So we can have multiple redirect URIs
Yes.
for one application.
Yes. You can have
Um,
multiple.
but in that case, how will the application know to which redirect URI it should redirect?
How will the so wherever the see when you send a request, right? You send in OAuth, the request header contains the details. So whatever you're requesting, whenever the request is coming from the application, it will have some request parameters or request header. In the header, where the whichever redirect URI is mentioned, the user will be sent to that URL itself, to that endpoint itself. Now suppose, like I'll give you an example. In my environment, for lower environment, okay, we have dev and test. So both dev and test URL are configured inside a single place in the test environment only. We don't have a separate dev environment.
Okay.
Okay. So now whenever the request comes from example.dev.com, the user is sent to dev environment. But if the request comes from example.test.com, the user is sent to the test endpoint or the test environment. That is how it depends. Like where the like in your request parameter, the redirect URI will be there. Okay. Whenever the request happens, the request URI contains the client ID, the client secret, redirect URI, and the scope. Okay. So these are the details that are present inside the request parameter whenever a new request happens.
Okay, so same in case of SAML also, like we can have many ICS URLs.
Yeah, I think we covered that part, right? When you try to let me go back. Let me stop. Uh,
So in the
Normal,
authentication request itself, that ACS URLs will be mentioned.
yes.
So depending upon that, we can configure many ACS URLs in the
Yeah, so if
IDPN.
you see, if I come over here, here. So here I can select another post URL. I'll select another post URL and I'll put ACS1. Okay, I can add it. So whenever the request comes from ACS1, it will look at ACS1 ACS URL. Okay, it can be anything. In similar way, you can have 10 different ACS URL. Okay,
Okay.
but
In
again,
OAuth also like that, a redirect URI will be.
but again, you can have 10 different ACS URL, but you cannot have two applications using multiple entity ID or two applications having same entity ID or same client ID. That will never happen. Okay.
Okay.
Noman, is this clear? Are you understanding what OAuth is?
Yeah, once I'll just go through those documents which you'll send once again. Yeah.
No, if you guys want, I can explain everything again. But is this like till now? Is this clear?
Yeah.
Now this was one of the flows. Okay. Now we'll come to the lab. We'll cover the lab and we'll try to set up everything. Okay.
Actually, you don't have access to these materials. I tried Sunday. The left side, all those content you see, right?
All
So
this will be
now,
provided by Abhishek. I don't have access
oh,
to share it.
okay, okay,
I
okay.
cannot share
No
this part.
problem. Yeah.
I'll share this part. Just talk to Abhishek if they are allowed to share it or not, or else I'll share a different article around OAuth that will help.
Okay.
Now coming
Okay.
to the second grant type or the second type of flow, it is called the implicit grant. Now this is generally used in case of single page application. Okay, if I recall correctly, a single page application. Now here what happens is you don't do a code to token exchange. Okay, you don't get the code and you exchange it for token. What directly happens is you will directly get the token and the token will be shared inside your URL, like inside on your browser. So you'll get the access token over here. Okay. So now when you're getting the token over here, obviously this is not safe. Anyone that any malicious third party actor can easily hack your browser and get the token, right? It can easily be done because your token is in your browser. And how long does it take to like trespass someone's browser and get access to the token? So that is the reason the implicit grant flow is not used anywhere. Okay, first it's a legacy protocol, and second it's not at all safe because the user is not proving its identity. Anyone who knows what is the authorization server, and anyone that has access to the client ID, it will say like, I am this client, just give me the token. And once they get the token, they can access the resources. Does this make sense? Why we do not use implicit flow? Is this making sense? Yes, no?
Yes, yes, Abhishek.
Again, see, this implicit grant flow you are never going to use in your environment. And if you use, then you'll have to explain why are you using it. Because this you'll never come across applications where you want to share the tokens in the URL. As simple as that. So don't try to uh, spend some like don't bother yourself in learning way too much about implicit grant. First, the only thing that you should know is how is this flow different from my authorization code flow. Okay. So in the authorization code flow, there is a code to token exchange that is happening, right? So if I go back to my diagram, here I'm getting a code from the authorization endpoint, and this code is exchanged for a token. But in the implicit flow, what is happening is Ghana will directly come to this endpoint and it will say like, give me the token. And this endpoint will have to give the token. There is no process or there is nothing to stop Ghana from taking the token. Okay. So now what is happening is, this is not at all safe, and this token will be shared across on your browser. So that is the reason this is not used. That is one difference. The second difference is, sorry, Ghana will directly take the token from this authorization endpoint, not from token endpoint. So the second difference between auth code and implicit is, in implicit we get the token from the authorization endpoint, but in auth code we get it from the token endpoint. Okay, so the call does not even come over here for implicit. It ends here itself. Okay, so in implicit we directly get the token from here. Is this making sense? Any questions? Subhajit, Rama, Reshma, Jay.
Yes, yes, no questions. Thank
So and this is something that people generally ask in your interviews. Okay, what is the difference between implicit and your authorization code? Okay, so you need to know like where the user is starting. The user journey remains the same, but in authorization code flow, the user journey ends over here. It gets the token and it ends. But in implicit, the user journey ends over here itself in the authorization endpoint. Okay, so this is important to know. Like this difference is important. Okay. So now coming back to my client credentials. So guys, tell me, like, I don't know if you guys have noticed it or not. In your phone, like be it Android or iOS, you see the update. Like whenever you have a software update, the software update gets downloaded on its own. Have you noticed this? Like whenever there is an update on your phone, the update patch is directly downloaded on your phone. You don't have to go and download the patch. Can you go and download the software patches, the upgrade patches from your Android server or from your iOS server? Can you do that? Yes, no?
Now we can. we cannot do.
But how is it getting downloaded? Someone is doing
Backend,
it.
yeah.
Someone is doing it, right? So
Mhm.
generally,
Yes.
what happens is, whenever you buy a phone, right? Even your phone is connected. Suppose you're using a iOS. So now your iOS is connected to the backend iOS server. So now as a user, can I directly go to the iOS server and download my software package? No, right? I don't have access to that server at the backend. But even if you are not able to do it, your phone regularly talks to the backend server and gets the software patches like downloaded. It is doing it, and it is getting installed also on your phone. So what is happening is, your phone also has a client ID, client secret. Okay. Now, whenever there is a software patch available, what is happening is, your phone is taking your client ID and client secret and making a call to the Apple server that is hosted at the backend iOS server. Now, once you have the client ID and client secret, what is happening is, when your phone, whenever your phone tries to download the patch, what your phone has to do is, your phone has to first prove its identity. Now, how is it proving its identity? Instead of sharing your username and password, what your phone is doing is, your phone is sending the client ID and client secret for your device. And where is it sending? It is sending, let me go back to my diagram. This application, your phone application, sends the client ID and client secret to the authorization server or the iOS server. If I take it over here, Android server. Okay, over here your client ID and client secret for your phone is shared, and once your client ID and client secret is verified, only then your software patches are downloaded. Okay, you as a user cannot directly access this, because this will not know you. This only knows your device. And when I say device, I mean your phone. It only knows the client ID and secret of your phone. Does this make sense? Right? Subhajit, Reshma, Noman. Right? Ask questions. Only then I'll understand if I'm explaining it in the right way or not. Or else I'll not be able to understand if I'm doing it right or not.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay. So this process where, instead of sending the username and password, we share the client ID and client secret. This flow is called the client credentials flow, where you send the client ID and client secret to get the token. Okay. You're not authentic. The user is not directly getting involved, but the user device or any, like when you have machine to machine communication. Okay, like this is a machine, my phone is a machine, and it's talking to a backend server. It is also a type of a machine. So whenever a machine to machine communication is involved, we are having the client credentials flow. Okay, where we send the client ID and client secret. Similarly, now if I go to, let me give you another example.
So in this case, the permission is the authentication permission is given, right? I mean,
Yes, the
not the
scope.
delegated,
Yeah,
the scope.
yeah. The scope is depending on what is. So I'm not sure what exactly is the scope for my device, but the scope will only be limited to download the patch.
Mm.
Installation will be done by me itself.
Correct. Yes.
The machine can only download the patch from the server. Installation I'll do, since machine does not have that scope. But in future, if they also give the machine the scope to do patching and also installing the patch, that can happen.
Also, the most secured one is the authorization flow, right?
Yes,
Authorization
yes,
with Pixie.
yes. Authorization code flow with Pixie. We'll come to that. We'll come to that. Now, one more example is, if I go to Flipkart. If I go to Flipkart, Now you see, I have not logged in, but I can still see this resource. Okay, I can still see the resource. I can still see what is the price of this smartwatch. I can do everything. So, these resources should be present at some data store in the backend. Okay, some data store is there at the backend where these resources are there. Let me do an inspect. Or let me run the developer tool. So even if I am not logged in, even if I'm not logged in over on logged in into Flipkart, I can still see these details. So there is some backend call that is happening that is giving me the detail of these accounts, right? So see, some calls are happening at the backend, but I have still not logged in. So now tell me, wherever these details are stored, can I as a user directly go and access that database? Is it possible? Is it possible for me to go and access the data store or database where all these products are hosted? Is it possible? Yes.
Sorry,
No?
what was your question? Sorry, just that
So
once again.
see, I have not. This is Flipkart, right? I have not logged into Flipkart yet. See, it is still
Mm.
asking me to log in. Now, since I'm not logged in, so it should not allow me access to its resources. If my understanding of OAuth is correct, because in OAuth code flow, what happens? We log in, our token is created, and then only we can access the application, right? Or access the resources, correct?
Yes.
But here what I'm saying is I have not logged in, but still I can access these resources. So how is this happening? There should be some mechanism that is happening, right? At the backend, where even if I am not logged, I'm not logging in to Flipkart, but I can still see it is giving me a early bird deal. It is giving me some bank offers. There is this watch that I can see. I can do everything, right? So that means at the back end, there is some call happening which is allowing me to access the application, Flipkart, without having the trouble to go through the login process. Now, how is that happens? At the back end, what happens is there is a data store or a database where all these products are hosted. Now, any user, when they try to uh, access it as a guest, like without logging in, so at the back end, this application has some client ID and client secret. So the client ID, client secret is shared. Again, client credential flow is working. The
Yeah.
client ID, client secret is shared with the backend server. Okay. Now, once that client ID, client secret is shared, you cannot see the client ID secret over here. It is not possible. But at the backend, it is happening. Now, once the client ID and client secret is shared, it allows the user to log in, to view the products without even logging in. Does this make sense?
Yeah. So this is happening because of the scope. The scope
Yes.
as read access has been, I mean,
View only access
whatever
or read
the,
access.
yeah, read access.
But is this making sense? Like, were these two examples clear on how client credential works? Reshma, is this clear?
Yes.
Noman, is this making sense to you?
Yes, Shivam.
Yeah, if you have questions, guys, please ask. We can continue this class like as long as you want, but please ask questions.
Now, so one thing is that this
Shubhajit, your voice too. I cannot hear you.
So in this case, the client credentials of this Flipkart applications is shared with what, like?
At the backend, there is a data. So all these things are hosted in a database, right? There should be some database that is hosting this, that is hosting all the details about this product. So what happens is the client credential for this application, the Flipkart, is shared with the backend database. Flipkart authenticates itself, and then only you are able to see these features or see these products. Okay. does does that answer your question?
Okay, so backend database of Flipkart, it's
Yes.
of the okay.
Any questions? Anything that you wanted to ask?
Yeah, one thing. In this client credential flow, I know that for this client credential flow, it is directly going to the token endpoint with the client ID, client secret that happens in the backend, and the access token is provided to the user. And if in the grant type ID token and anything is mentioned, then the ID token is also provided.
Yes.
But then again, what the exchange happened, does it happens on a secure channel? For this authorization code flow, I know that the authorization code is directly sent into the HTTP header itself. That's the reason implicit grant is, I mean, security wise, it is not good because the access token is directly sent to the response
URL.
header. Yeah, header itself. But then for the client credential flow, this is also not secure, right? Because the client ID and client secret is stored somewhere. If anyhow this gets compromised, then the attacker can get hold of this information. And in this client credential flow, also the process of this access token happens over any secure channel.
Yes. So see, you do not use client credential like everywhere.
Hmm.
Whenever your application is going to make a API call, okay. Generally in your environment, like in my environment, whenever any application makes any API call, then only we use the client credential. Okay, that is one case. Again, when you want to have a machine to machine communication and the trust level between these two machines are very high, then we use the client credential.
Okay,
Okay, and
this bank and all, they uses the client credential flow only, right? I mean, they, or am I
depending
wrong?
on their scenario, I don't. So if there are any backend API calls or any machine to
Hmm.
machine calls that are happening, then there is client credential flow. But for normal users, they my best guess is they use the Pixie flow. Pixie with like the
Yeah, that is
variation of
understood. Yeah.
they'll never use client credential for users. Okay.
Okay.
Uh,
And
So, but
another thing, Shubhankar, intra ID, we have that Graph API. Then Okta, we have that we onboard everything into Postman.
hmm,
Similar way, I mean, in Pingfederate, is there anything like this where we can
yes,
use the API and do some PowerShell scripting or something like
yes,
that?
yes. You should search for Pingfederate. The admin API, right? Pingfederate
Hmm.
API.
So, this authentication policy building, then contract, is it possible to extract it from API, the system log, all this thing?
You can do
Actually,
that also, but
you know,
see,
this Pingfederate is now, I mean, quite complicated because I was reading many document like last 2 days. I mean, the documents are not clearly written. Like in Entra ID, if you go through the document, you will clearly understand with the picture and all. And I'm not getting much blog as well over here. Like many people will write blog, right? So in Pingfederate, the resource is not that much good, I'll say. I mean,
see the thing with Pingfederate is right. Pingfederate has intentionally kept things complex because what happens is you see Okta. Okta is very easy to understand.
hmm.
Yeah, and it's very and you might have heard about recent hacks or recent events that have happened with Okta.
Yes, yes.
But with Pingfederate, I don't think I've heard anything in the last 5 6 years about any hacking or anything that has happened. Why? Because Pingfederate has intentionally left things complex. It does not want the user to easily understand its architecture or easily understand things. You have to spend time in order to understand Pingfederate. So
Hmm.
you cannot just come in and understand Pingfederate in 5 6 months.
No,
It will
not possible.
it will take time. It requires effort. Okay. Even with the API, if you want to do scripting, right, you need to understand how each component will work. You cannot just go ahead and onboard the application using the API. You need to, because see, if you work with Entra ID or Okta, I don't know if you've seen, but application onboarding is just 4 steps.
Yeah, that is, yeah.
It's
I
just
mean,
4 or 5 steps. But in Pingfederate, if you want to onboard any application, you have to like make changes into 10 different places.
yes.
And if anything goes wrong, you have to look into the 10 different places in order to troubleshoot it, where it went wrong. So things are complex, and this is where the engineering part comes in. If
Yeah,
you
very
want to be
complex.
if you want to become a good security engineer, right, you should work on on-prem products like Pingfederate. Only then you'll understand how things work. Cloud is easy. Cloud is easy to manage. Cloud is easy to work on. Okay, when you're working with on-prem, right, every day you'll have some infrastructure issues. Every day we come across some or the other issue
Is it?
related to the, yes, every day there will be some issue.
Okay, actually, okay, okay.
I only then see, you might think why should, so here again, here comes operations versus engineering. Okay, many people say why should I do operation is just like anyone can do. But whatever you learn about any tool, right, you learn it through operation. Because if you don't know the tool properly in and out, how will you do the engineering work? You need to understand operations in such a way that when you get promoted to your engineering role, you are able to manage, you are able to implement things, since you have done so much work on operations, so you know how each and every part of an application behaves. Okay, so don't expect to directly get engineering work on Pingfederate. It will never happen. You'll be in a very difficult situation. People will expect you to work, and you will not be able to implement things, since you do not know how Pingfederate part works, how Pingfederate in general works, or what are the different components on Pingfederate. Okay, and the documentation again, they have intentionally kept it very complex. Everything is a plan, like on their end at least, how they want to approach things.
So mainly, I mean, once I get into a project which is having Pingfederate and do hands-on, then only, I mean, all this concept will clear. Once I start working on more on use cases, then, yeah,
Only then this will be clear. Until and
we
unless
do
you don't work or you don't do practice hands-on,
hands-on.
it will never be clear. No matter how much training you take, or no matter who gives you training.
Mhm. Correct. We at least I know the concept of each of the component, what is there. So then this basic idea is cleared. Actually, I was not having any clear idea of what is actually Pingfederate. थोड़ा थोड़ा भी clear हुआ है. So then
So
now
you
it's
have,
up to us actually what we do.
again, see, I've had people who have taken training from Wuhan or from somewhere else, but again they are taking training. I said, like, what are you planning to do? If you're just taking training, how is it going to help? And I think someone from a previous batch, he was about to join this batch. I said, like, how many trainings will you take? Until and unless you don't work hands-on, you don't practice on your own, no amount of training is going to help. Even if you get the training from the highest level of architect, even from Ravi, it is not going to help because you are not practicing on your own. So on Pingfederate side, right, coming back to our part, see, on Pingfederate side, whenever you want to onboard an OAuth application, it is very easy to onboard OAuth application. And even troubleshooting OAuth application is very easy. Okay. Now with Pingfederate, right, whenever you try to onboard any OAuth application, the first thing that you have to create is a access token manager. Now what this access token manager does is, access token manager is used to generate your access token. Whatever access token is being shared to the client application is generated using this plugin called access token management. Okay. Now, this access token manager is of two types. One is called the JOT token, the JSON Web Token, and the other is called internally managed reference token. Any idea on what is the difference between these two? It's very interesting. Any idea? Anyone?
Sorry, what was the question?
What is the difference between, so whenever you try to create OAuth applications on Pingfederate, right? There are two things that have to be done first. First, you need to create access token manager. Now, the access token manager is used to generate the access token. Okay, that is as simple as that. It is used to generate the access token, and this access token is shared by application. Now, if you try to create access tokens, right, there are two type of access token managers or two type of access tokens. One is the JOT token or JSON Web Token, and the second is called internally managed reference token. My question is, does anyone know what is the difference between these two?
ID token is basically is
No, not
present
ID token.
JOT
Internally
token.
managed reference token and JSON Web Tokens. We are not talking about ID tokens right now. We are just talking about access token.
Okay, internally managed reference token. These are all JOT token, I know, access token and ID token all. Internally managed reference token. So does Pingfederate provide some other token? Int.
No one? No man?
Oh.
I think for internal managed reference tokens, we are creating manually based on the requirement.
Anyone else?
Internally managed.
So I'll tell you. What internally managed reference token is? See, JOT token is something where you share the entire original payload, like entire original token to the application. But instead of in internally managed, what happens is you don't share the original token. You share a copy of the original token to the application. Now you'll say like, why do we share a copy? What is the benefit? So see, sometimes these JOT tokens, right? These JOT tokens have a payload size. Sometimes these JOT tokens are like, you send so many attributes that the JOT token becomes heavy. I use this word, it becomes heavy. So in order to reduce the payload, what we do is we do not share the original access token. Okay. We share something called a reference of the original token with the application. It works in the same way. It will let you access the application. But instead of depending on the original token or sending the original token, making the payload heavy, we just share a reference of the original token. Okay. Does this make sense?
Yes, Subhankar.
Now, second part is the OIDC policy. Now, before I talk about OIDC policy, we need to talk about something called OpenID Connect. Now, OpenID Connect, okay, since you all know, OAuth only delegates authorization. OAuth does not handle authentication. So we need someone to authenticate the user, right? We need a process to verify the identity of a user. Now, how is that verification done? That verification is done using OIDC. So, OIDC is the authentication protocol which is built on top of OAuth, okay, in order to allow authentication. So, I'll repeat myself again. OIDC is the authentication protocol that is built on top of OAuth to allow for authentication of users. Okay. Now, OAuth and OIDC both work together. You cannot just use OAuth. You need to use OIDC together for authentication part. Okay. Now, for OAuth application, in order for them to in order to get the user attributes, okay, in order to get the user attributes or claims in OAuth, attributes are called claims, okay, and if you want to send the attributes inside your ID token, okay, if you want to send your attributes in the ID token, you send it using the OIDC policy, okay, you send it using the OIDC policy. Now I was talking about ID token. Now, any idea what is an ID token and how is it different from an access token? Any idea on that? What is the main difference between an ID token and an access token? Anyone?
ID token contains the details about the user who is trying to access the application.
That even access token can have.
My understanding was like access token contains what level of access?
What? See, access token, remember this, access token represent authorization of a user, okay? Access token represents authorized users, okay? Whereas ID token represent authenticated users. Does this, like, did that make sense?
Yes.
Subhajit, Noman, Rama, Jay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
So ID token represents authenticated users, whereas access token represents authorized users. Okay. This is the reason when I say OAuth and OIDC work hand in hand. So you have access token, which will determine what is the scope of what is the level of access a user have, and you have ID token that will represent how the user is getting authenticated and what all attributes will be sent. Okay, that is how OAuth and OIDC work together. So whenever you're creating a OAuth application, you create the access token management. You then come and create the OIDC policy. Because based on this policy, whatever attributes you define in this policy, only those attributes will be present inside your token, your ID token or your access token. Okay. This policy helps you in determining what values will be there in your policy. Does this make sense, guys? Is this getting like, are you facing an information overload? Because we are talking about a lot of different things.
No, so in this OpenID policy, if we add policy, we can uh, can you do one add policy and show us once?
Yeah, I'll do that. But what is your question? Come to your question. Let's talk about that.
No, I mean, so I know this ID token, I mean, user will be authenticated. I mean, so how the user authentication will happen, those will be present in this, or that's what my question was.
No. In again, OIDC policy, what it does is it contains the whenever you configured SAML application, right? You had the option of adding the attributes that you need for that from that application.
Yes.
Similarly, in OIDC, right? Whatever attributes you need about the user, it is sent in the form of tokens, right?
Yes, correct.
Now, what are the attributes that the token is going to contain? That is defined using your OIDC policy. Okay. Here you can create the access token management. See, in order to do the lab, okay, there are two ways you can do the lab. One, you can manually create everything. That is a good way to understand things, and then test using Postman. But there is another way, okay, and I like that way better. That is called using a tool called OAuth Playground. Okay. Let me go back. Come back over here. Let me download this. Now this OAuth Playground, it is a plugin that is used by Ping, that is created by Ping in order for users to understand how your OAuth works. If you want to learn and understand how your OAuth is working, then what you can do is you can install this tool. Now, how do you install it? We'll cover that right now. Ah.
Subankar, this session will extend till 1 more hour.
Yes.
Okay.
So this OAuth playground, right? This OAuth playground is a very good tool. If you have confusions or if you want to understand how things work on OAuth, okay, this is the best. This is the best way to understand. I'll tell you how to install OAuth playground and how to play around it. Just give me one. Use this document. This has the steps to install your OAuth playground. So let me copy this. I think it got downloaded. Did it download? Or downloads. Click on developer tools. So did everyone get a chance to create their account on the Ping portal? I know like they have limited the access, but still, did anyone else try using a personal account?
I tried it, but I was getting that Salesforce error.
So they've limited the access right now. Okay, they don't want their product to be easily accessible.
I actually accessed with my college mail, which is at the rate college.ac.in. So
now I have to download Ping. So now if you look at the document, right? Where is the document? Okay. So now if you want, in order to install this, right, you have to first stop your Pingfederate services because we are going to make some changes. So in order to stop your Pingfederate services, you need to search for something called services. You can also stop it from your command prompt or your Windows PowerShell using command. If you want, if you want to make your life more complex, more difficult, then please go ahead and do that. But I like to keep things easy. I'll stop from here. So we stop the services. Now Pingfederate is stopped. Now how do you know Pingfederate is stopped? If I go over here, I do a refresh. You see, Pingfederate is stopped. So now what the document says is, in order to do this, I need to download the playground. I need to extract the content. Okay, and what I need to do is, let me go back. Let me go and extract the content space. I downloaded this. Let me delete it.
So basically, auth playground, what is that like? What we can do, what we can achieve through it?
I'll show you. I'll show you what you can. OAuth Playground is basically a plugin. Okay, now this plugin helps you in understanding how OAuth works. Okay, it will help you understanding how Pingfederate works with OAuth, or how Pingfederate works as an authorization server, or how Pingfederate can work as a resource server, how authorization code flow works, or how the different flows work. All you can learn and understand using this particular tool. Okay.
Okay.
So now what I'll do is I'll extract this file. Extract. I'll extract over here. So see, there is a way where you can create everything on your own. That is a manual way of doing it. But with this playground, right, you also learn on your own. What it will do is you'll when you install it, you will see different options that you can utilize. Okay. And
Shubhanga, can you share that OAuth playground in the?
I put the chat, I put it in the link, and also share the zip file. I'll share the drive. I'll share it in through drive.
Okay.
Yes.
So that you don't have to worry about it. But the thing is, see, in my organization also, okay, if I want to understand how a workflow is working for any particular application, I don't try to create everything from scratch. I just go to my playground, I add whatever is needed, and then I work on it. Okay. That is what I prefer actually. So now, what is it saying? Let me go back to the documentation. So what it is saying is, to install it, I need to copy the contents of the dist and deploy directory to my Pingfederate server default deploy. So let me go back. There is a deploy directory. So I need to copy this. I need to copy this file, this war file, and I go back over here. I come back. Local disk C. I go to Pingfederate. And guys, always remember the directory structure: server, default, deploy. I'll have to paste it over here. Okay. Now I go back again. I need to paste all the content. So this is the plugin. This is the plugin that we are going to utilize. I pasted the contents of the deploy directory. Now, if I go back again, I need to paste contents from here. Copy. Copy language packs. I go to server default, com, language packs, and I paste over here. Okay. And go back. I'll come back over here in con. Okay, I have to copy all these. So see, templates in Pingfederate are very important. So whatever UI that you see, the UI for the login pages, everything is controlled using your template. So you need to be clear that you have the template in place. I go to con and then I go to template. I paste all the four. I think all the templates are added. And now if you are good with HTML and Java, and if you want to do custom development, go ahead and customize these templates. Whatever you customize, according to that, you'll see the login page. So you can customize everything. Okay. So now I have done this. What I'll do is I'll start my Pingfederate. So see guys, since I was deploying new files, right? So whenever you deploy it with the services being running, it might create some issues. So always stop your Pingfederate before you're making any changes, like adding new files or removing files. Okay. So I added the file. Now let's see what happens. My Pingfederate is started. Now I'll do it. And go over here. It should be up and running now. Ah, it is very slow.
Hi Shubhankar, actually I'll have to jump in another meeting. So
Ah,
I'll
sure,
just watch the recording for sure.
sure.
Yeah.
This
And
taking
also
some time.
that Linux document one, if you could share that one, that will be
Sure, sure.
helpful.
These things
Yeah.
are pending, right? Just put in the group whatever document is pending, and
ठीक
I'll
है, ठीक.
share it by you.
Oh, okay, okay. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Okay. Let it load first. Restart. Restart. Let me clear the history. So sometimes when you restart, okay, if your deployment is not correct, if sometimes your deployment is not correct, then Pingfederate might not start. If you want to avoid it, if you want to troubleshoot why your Pingfederate is not starting, there are several ways. One, the best way is to restart everything. That is what I do most of the time, and it works. So see, right now my Pingfederate is not opening. So I think I've deployed some file incorrect. So I think this time, if I go back to default, deploy, so war files is there. Let's look into the logs, why it is not opening. So if I go to Pingfederate, with logs, edit with method, it should say why it is not starting. You see my logs are in debug mode, so I should be able to get the details. So you directly search for errors. Now, if you are looking for any particular error, what you can do is you can directly click on this line and it will take you to that line wherever your error is coming. Okay. So this is a very bad, like long back this error happened. So today let's see what is happening. So it does not say anything in general. You stop and start again. automatic start. Okay. I added an extra number. Okay, let me do one. Pingfederate. So, okay, give me 1 second. You know, I'm getting a call. Hello. Let me see. Okay, yeah, now it's up. Now it's up. So generally it takes some time. Okay, it will take some time to start up, but once it's back, you'll have something like this. So what happened was it generally took some time to restart or come back again. Okay. So whenever that happens, the best part, the one thing that you can do is you have to stop for some time and then try. Since we were not seeing any errors related to the startup, so we just have to wait. Every time you restart, right? Sometimes since your server capacity is not that big or not that large, so it takes time to boot up. So once this is boot up, once this is up and running, what you have to do is now you have access to this. Now, in order to access your OAuth playground, right? What you have to do is you have to copy this URL. Okay, copy this URL, go to your notepad plus plus, and it says now here you just have to add your PF host. So what is our host name? Our host name is, let me go back. This is our host name. This is our host name. Okay. We have this. Now you copy this URL and you go to your browser. Now we try to access this OAuth playground. Now it will take some time, but once it loads up, it will ask you to do the setup for your OAuth playground. Now you see, either you can do the setup right now. Okay, I choose, let's do the setup. Okay. Now it will ask you to do the admin host. What is going to be the admin host? It can be 9999. Okay, this is the port number for your admin for your admin portal or admin port. Now it will ask you for the admin name. Give your admin name, administrator, and your password. Okay, you click on next. Not process shopping. This you can do later as well, but this is part of your setup. So you see, once this is done, right? Once you install your OAuth playground, so if you come to your application, you'll see some of the OAuth clients are already created. Okay, let it load. These applications are not created yet. So now if you want to create, okay, once the setup is done, only then these applications will be created. So now if I go back. So now if I go back, now what I said, in order to work with OAuth, you can either directly create the application, okay, directly create the access token manager or the OIDC policy, or when you install OAuth playground, right, you will get an option to do the setup. Now, when you do the setup, right, you give your host name, you give your admin username and password, all the applications and everything will be created. Now, if I want to create a new access token manager, what I'll do, I'll come under the access to application and I'll click the access token manager. Now I can give it a name, ATM1. Now again, we can choose a dot token or an internally managed reference token. So click on next, whatever you choose depending on your requirement. Now you see it asks for a key ID. It asks for a key ID and the certificate. Now this certificate is used to validate your access token, to see if the token is coming from the right ID provider or not. Okay, this is why we use the certificate. This certificate, I'll tell you again, most of the time, like one common issue that you'll come across is this certificate that you're using to sign your access tokens to prove that you are the right OIDC provider can get expired. So now when your certificates are expired, right, what it can lead is it can lead to breakage of authentication, or there can be authentication outage. So now what you have to do, you have to always make sure that this certificate is valid, and if you see the certificate is going to expire, always replace this certificate. Is this making sense?
So that certificate will be common for all the applications, or
No, again, depending on your requirement, you can have separate certificates. You can
Okay.
have separate certificates for token signing. You can have separate certificates for your SAML application, all depending on your requirement, how you want to configure your environment.
Okay.
Okay. Now, if you see for the access token, what is going to be the lifetime of your access token? It is going to last for 120 minutes. After 120 minutes, the user will have to log in again and get authenticated. Okay. Now, in order to see how again, in order to sign the token, right? We are using that certificate. But what is going to be the signing algorithm? Okay. How do we check that? Without the signing algorithm, it will not let us move ahead. So here, what is going to be the signing algorithm for our token? I am going to use RSA SSA 256, and this is the most common hashing algorithm that we use in order to sign our token. Okay. Now let's move ahead. Okay. Now we also have to add the EID. Yes. So again, here it is going to use the default certificate in order to sign the token. So I'll click on next. Now this is very interesting, this part. Now what this does is, if you want to see like what is going to, like how long the session for a user is going to run, okay, or is the user session active or not, you can select this. Include session identifier in access token. Now, if you want to check if a user has a valid authentication session or not, are they like still accessing their application or not, you can add an identifier for that by selecting this checkbox. Okay. Now, if you want to check if the user session has already ended or not, you can click on check revocation status. So every time you do this, it will send you if the user session has been revoked or not. Now, anything, if you want to check whatever updates have been made during the if you want to check if the user session has been changed or not, has there been any updates in the user session or not, you can select this part. Is this clear? Reshma, Jay, Shubhajit? I think Shubhajit and Noman dropped.
Subankar,
Yes.
everyone are not there here. Even I have to jump into another call, 3:30 to 4.
Okay.
Is it fine? We can continue session after some time, or you guys will continue. How it will
Okay.
be.
So what we can do is, we can, as I said, like there will be an extra class. So
Hmm. Yeah, actually, see, no one is there, right? Due
uh,
to weekdays, some
I
busy.
know it's Monday. Yes, yes, yes. Even
Yeah,
I have to log into myself.
yeah, that's the reason. I have call a cadence call now. So today after 9 o'clock, anytime
It
we
will be
can.
difficult today. Okay, I'll see. Anyways, I have a extra class for certification. Okay.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
was planned. So the first half of that class, we are going to do the labs for OAuth OIDC, and then we'll start.
Okay. So today no class again. Like we
No,
can
no,
connect.
not today. Tomorrow. We'll have it tomorrow or day after tomorrow. We'll have one.
Okay. Tomorrow. I mean tomorrow no class.
I'll see like when I want to do that. I think it will be tomorrow itself, the same
Okay.
timing,
Mm-hmm.
12 to 3 or 12 to 4, and
Mm-hmm.
then we'll connect.
Okay. Sure, sure. You will update us, right?
Yes, yes. I'll
Oh,
put that in the
okay, okay, sure, sure. Because no
and
one is here. Yeah.
uh, and someone please put what all documents you need from my end so that I can put it in the group.
Yeah, sure, sure. And
Yeah, sure.
mm, so Bankar, like these guys need some mock interview, something, right? As per our session.
Everything will happen. I said right, there will be an extra class. So we'll
Yeah, yeah,
cover.
sure. Yeah, fine, fine. I think we have worked directly, like, for WOA, IDC, Open ID Connect, these things directly while creating web applications. Here you are giving extra information. I never used like this. We need to deploy WOA to playground something. So this is interesting. So we'll see.
This is for your testing. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
If you don't want to create everything from scratch, you can directly just install this and everything will be created in your own environment. You
Mm,
don't even have to create your access token managers or OIDC policy.
exactly, exactly. Sure, sure.
Once you do the setup properly, everything will be.
Understood. Yeah. So you can update me, like update us tomorrow at what time, same time we can connect or anytime. So based on that we can predict. Yeah.
Sure.
If not tomorrow, I mean anytime today also. No worry. After 6 p.m. 7:30, I will be free.
Okay, I'll let you. I'll let everyone.
Yeah, sure, sure. Thank you so much, sir.
Shubhankar, Shubhankar?
Yes.
Actually, the license file previously, which was in the chat, it was not working for me. I'm not sure whether it's not the right way of importing or not. I'm getting as invalid Pingfederate file,
Okay, I'll
license
share.
file.
I'll share it again. I'll share it in the
Okay. Yeah. And also one more question I just want to ask, like if we have configured one application and if we want to disable the SSO for that application, where we will be making that change? I got a question like this.
You directly go. You see. You go. Can you see my screen?
I think it's loading.
See the application. If you want to disable, everything is inside over here. I'll just click on this, and this is disabled.
Okay, so like now SSO is not there, but still we can log into the application using the
Yeah.
username and password.
Yes. SSO will not work.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Will you please share that file so that I am stuck there, so I'm not able to
Which
do anything.
a license, right? I'll
License
share it.
file, yeah, the new
I'll
one.
share it. Yeah, I'll share it.
Okay. Okay, Shubhanga, thanks.
Guys, we'll connect